Ladies and gentlemen, it's official. Zoran Mamdani is now the New York City's first Muslim mayor. But his victory is part of a bigger story. Across Europe, Muslim leaders are gaining power. From the streets of London to Berlin, Oslo to Rotterdam, they are reshaping, to say the least, how politics are and diplomacy look in the West. Tonight on the Witty Vitor Podcast, we are asking, how does this shift mean for West's identity, for Israel's position, and for the balance of power in the modern world? So stay with us to get these questions clarified to the best of our ability. So we look at global affairs here with a mix of insight, irony, and intellectual honesty. And as you just heard, we will discuss New York's new mayor, Zoran Mamdani. Sorry, I struggle to pronounce this.
You're going to call him Mad Manny if you want, Mad Manny.
Mad Manny. So there's a nickname here. So let's see who is this madman here. And let's see how mad is he and how dangerous he can be, not only for the States, but also for us who are across the Atlantic in the European continent. So we're witnessing a shift in demographics and diplomatic. I want to understand how that will change the landscape, not only of Europe, but the whole West, and how we impact Israel as an extension. I'm joined by my co-host, Marco Alexander, in Jerusalem, and with my dear guests, Peter Baum and Anjuli Pandamar. There are three minds who are always bringing depth, disagreement, and a touch of wit. So if you are into these elements, make sure to press those three buttons below: subscribe, like, and share. So with that, we start the conversation, and we are part of it. So if you want to add some comments, or if you want to ask us a question, use the chat box for that purpose. I start with you, Peter, because I know you are not able to stay with us for the whole session, so I want to hear as much as I can in the next 60 minutes from your end. So I think one of the striking findings in this New York election was that while the Jewish community overall still favored Common, there was a non-trivial contingent of younger or liberal Jewish voters back at the Mamdani or Madmani or whatever you want to call it, despite his critical stance on Israel. So what does that tell us, about the evolving relationship between Jewish communities, Israeli policy, and the progressive agenda, in your opinion?
Yeah, this is quite a phenomenon and a growing one. We see a number of people born into Judaism who have been brought up in semi-Orthodox secular families, let's say, who for ideological reasons are being swayed to those politicians with an ideology that is very hostile to the Jewish state of Israel. And this is not only true of what's going on in New York, but certainly in London, where parties on the left, like the Green Party and the progressive left parties, have a very anti-Jewish state agenda. Some say it was anti-Semitic. They tend to hide behind the wall of anti-Zionism and anti what Israel are doing in Gaza. But underneath that, I'm pretty sure that it's true anti-Semitism. And Jews, young Jews on the left, and actually not even young Jews, but they certainly are a large demographic. But certainly middle-class Jews seem to be not as loyal to those politicians who are truly supportive of Israel, and this is a problem. We've seen it in the States when Trump was facing hostility from Jews who vote Democrat, whose agenda was clearly not as pro-Israel as Trump's was. We've seen it all over Europe, certainly in the United Kingdom, and it is difficult to comprehend why those born into Judaism and whose parents were clearly supportive of the Jewish state of Israel are shying away from openly supporting Israel and indeed being hostile to her. I'm not sure how we can redress that. I have thought that if, for example, Benjamin Netanyahu was not Prime Minister of Israel, and let's say there was a face that was more acceptable globally, perhaps that trajectory would change. But I'm not sure it would. So it's a difficult one, and I don't think Jewish leaders, community leaders, have done enough to stand up and be counted and to advertise and be proud of what Israel and her people have achieved. Those of us who do put our head behind the parapet, above the parapet, are just as likely to be criticised by the anti-Israel mob, but as well as those who I've described on the progressive left of Judaism.
Interesting. Sorry,
Anjuli,
Vítor,
I have a question. Yeah, I have just a question
go ahead.
Anjuli, that I'm very keen to ask, if you don't mind. So, Anjuli, it seems that a self-declared communist and an anti-Israel candidate has won an election in the heart of the capitalism in a city very, very close to the Jewish community. Should we rename New York the Rotten Apple?
I'm not sure whether there aren't other prior periods when we might have called it that. But lightheartedness aside, I think it's a really tragic phenomenon across the Western world when a population can be so confused about what it disagrees with, about what it dislikes, that it would accept something that is clearly detrimental to their very existence as a protest against something that they merely disagree with. Elections come and go. They in the run of democracy, they every 4 years, 5 years, or 6 years, or whatever, and parties come and go, and people disagree and agree, etc., etc. But it's quite a different thing when your country faces, and not only your country, your entire world, your entire civilization faces an existential threat, such as the entire West faces right now. I seldom see the gravity of the current situation appreciated in amongst the wider public. They have complaints about some detailed aspects or some manifestations of what is going on. For example, hundreds of thousands of people invading their country from across the sea in little boats, or cutting their way into their borders, or they see their women and girls can no longer be safe on the street. They get raped left, right, and center. These individual things get them very upset, and quite rightly so. And but there's a bigger picture that they do not see, and they think that their government is responsible, the one who's not doing what they're supposed to be doing since they've elected them, and they see no further than that. It is when an army with tanks and planes, etc., invades a country, it is patently obvious. There's a war that's just started. There's been an invasion, and we are in a situation of war, and we conduct ourselves according to being in a condition of war. But when you do not see tanks and warplanes entering a country, and what you see instead is military-age men in their hundreds of thousands, clearly fit and very, very aggro and ready to do to your society. Oh God, let's have the 5 minutes.
No, it's fine.
Have I overshot the?
No, it was my cut here.
Oh, okay.
He's not protesting against what you are saying.
Okay,
He's just paying attention and taking notes, so it's fine.
Right, okay. No, I'm saying that clearly we see very horrible things going on in Western Europe, in Germany, in Sweden, in Denmark, in the Netherlands, in the UK, in Ireland, all at the same time, in Italy, and it's not appropriate to blame the governments that currently hold power in this term for these things. It's been coming for decades, and we never recognized it as a jihad invasion. It's not recognized that way. We find all sorts of ways to obfuscate it. We find all sorts of ways to belittle it, to sideline it, to discuss it in different terms. And so I think the election of Sadiq Khan 2.0 in New York is even that the New Yorkers do not see that the condition that London is in now, they have just triggered by this election. And all they can see is that they are against Trump or they are against Netanyahu. Therefore, we vote for Mandani. But what they have just set in train is exactly what Europe had set in train decades ago. And the groundwork is there. There's everything is in place. And all it needed was this little kingpin. And so the CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood and Sharia all over the place, it's all ready to take off. So I don't see it as an election thing. I see it as a really serious civilizational crisis that has just kicked off.
And you bring some powerful insights, and I think viewers should be made aware that you are a former Muslim. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you see things also perhaps in a different light, in a way. You have insights which we who are outsiders wouldn't necessarily have. I think we can agree that we do see a recurrent pattern. It's not just a matter of Islamism, but of weakened Western societies. I would even go so far as to say feminized Western societies. I think there's an element of that. We see recurrent things where working class women are being abused all over the place. And indeed, this reflects many scenarios which we've seen throughout the world, especially the rape of people, of both men and women, on the 7th of October, what is happening in Black Africa again. There is a recurrent theme, of course, to demoralize and to weaken and to destroy the social fabric of these different countries. This I think is a recurrent pattern. Of course, we do have this oblique alliance between the progressive left and Islamism. I think at this point we do see something which is at this stage organic. They are working in tandem. The progressives may not quite realize the entity, of the danger, but it's something that we see. It's almost as if they're one organism. We see the breakdown of Western society, which is to a great extent the work of progressives and a certain brand of Marxism. And we see Islam coming in and filling a spiritual void, if you will, because we also have to take into consideration the many white people who are now converting to Islam, and not just any type of Islam, but Islam in its most virulent form. Peter, would you like to pick up on any of that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what both you guys have just said. But what makes it historically more frightening is that we've seen 2 years of demonization of Israel because of what's been going on in Gaza, where the Arab world, driven by Islamism, let's say, and the globalist leaders of the Western countries and parties aligned to the far left, have day after day after day just kept the Israel-Gaza situation in the news, much of it false narrative and all of it demonizing Israel. Now, where there is true conflict, such as in Sudan, where there is a horror story going on, where African Muslims are slaughtering Muslim Africans, and Islamists are slaughtering Christians, etc., etc. This, and there is a famine. This attracts, I would suggest, 1% of the attention that attracted the media to the Israel-Palestinian issue. So one has to ask ourselves why. And that's because not only has the far left infiltrated ideologically into our universities, into our media, into our politics, aligned, as you say, with Islam, which is a toxic mix, but also it has infiltrated so much of our media. And these, all this united makes it a very dangerous place for Jews to be living in the West. What is so ironic, and you've all touched on it really, is that those Jews who align themselves with that ideological brand which is hostile to Israel don't seem to realize that a Jew is a Jew is a Jew. And when Hamas went in and slaughtered people on October the 7th, they didn't care whether that Jew was a pro-Palestinian Jew or an anti-Palestinian Jew. They didn't care whether the Thai, Nepalese or Tanzanian workers were Zionists or non-Zionists. To them, they were just people there to be slaughtered. And the barbarism displayed, if these Jews think that they are somehow going to be saved by aligning themselves with those who are hostile to Israel, then they're in a state of delusion. And it's only Israel that will actually say, okay, chaps, it's getting too much for you over there. You can always come to us. So the phenomenon is such. I mean, one of my friends called it, it's like playing violins on the Titanic. There is no doubt about it in my mind. We are too far gone, certainly in the United Kingdom. I think I speak for Western Europe as well, where the demographics are such that hostile Islamists, hostile not only to Judaism, but to the Judeo-Christian values at large, are coming over in swarms of numbers, either legally or illegally. They have been indoctrinated with an education system, and through religious schools, of hating the West and hating Jews. And we in the West, because of our liberal values, are saying, come on over, chaps, don't worry, come on over, we'll make sure you're okay. We won't send you back to your countries because you're not going to be safe there. And they're making our countries in the West very unsafe And we're seeing that trajectory increase day by day in a variety of ways, whether it's hostility towards women, whether it's anti-Semitism, whether it's infiltration in the media or academia. So unfortunately, in the United Kingdom, given how the demographics are, I don't think there is a way back for Jewish people like myself in this country. I think it's going to become increasingly hostile and uncomfortable. Our governments are there to protect us, but don't, because they are too afraid of losing a vote which is going to keep them in power. Jews number, I think it's about 250,000 people in the UK, which half are of voting age, let's say. The Muslim bloc is something like 4 million plus and growing. So if you're a politician, you know, it's clear to me that the Jewish vote isn't important anymore. Moral decency be damned. Let's go for those who are going to keep us in power. And the power with Islam is growing as they elect their councillors and their politicians into becoming mayors, as we've seen in London and in the United States. And unfortunately, those mayors, rhetorically, they say, oh, we will ensure that anti-Semitism doesn't grow, we will protect our Jews. I don't think they can be trusted. And if you walk into many streets in Muslim-dominated areas in the UK at the moment, they are actually no-go areas. I mean that since you would not walk down, really, not only being Jewish, if you were a white person with a Union Jack flag, you wouldn't come out alive. So being the Jewish person wearing a kippah or a Star of David,
you're fair game.
There are no areas in the UK at the moment.
Let's go back to Sadiq Khan 2.0 and sorry.
I'm sorry, just to expand on one more point. I go to the synagogue, our local synagogue, every Saturday morning. We have to have, as every synagogue does now, security guards and gates that are secure gates. Now, if I was to explain that to both my parents are dead now, but if I was to tell them that 30 or 40 years ago, they would be shocked. So for me to have to go to live in my own country, born and bred, to go to my synagogue where I have to have security to go in and out and lock gates, that's the kind of country we're living in the moment. And every synagogue is like that in the United Kingdom.
Yeah. Let's cross the ocean back to New York, because I want to share with you a clip from PBT podcast, and I would like to get your thoughts. I think it's very revealing on how the situation is confusing, to say the least, in America. So I'll just play a clip here. I think we all benefit from watching it. So not here. Sorry. So there's some technical issues here, but I'll solve it. Yeah. Okay. You can all see it now.
In a recent mayoral primary New York City poll, likely Jewish Democratic voters conducted by the Honan Strategy Group for Fund, that approximately 20% of Jewish people plan to support Mandani. How can you, as a Jewish person, support that guy? And I'm just confused. I wanted to ask you guys, Adam, just in general, what makes this guy? What is he pitching, Tom? Is it just the free crap? Is it the same crap that Obama did when he's like, people were like, remember the videos where you saw people going, he's going to pay my rent. He's going to give me a free cell phone. What is going on?
I'll explain, because
explain it to me, please. I'm so lost.
Some people, when you lose faith in God and God is removed from society, something's going to fill that gap. And a lot of times a government or your political affiliation will. So just because you're Jewish doesn't mean that you are a strong believer in God. There's a lot of Jewish atheists out there. So there's a lot of Jewish leftists out there. Bernie Sanders is one of them. George Soros is one of them. Prime example. These people are not God-fearing. They're not going to temple. They're not going to church. They don't believe in a higher power necessarily. They believe in the government. So there's a lot of far left Jewish liberals who I think some of them are friends of mine, but they are so off base. Just like there are people who are Christian and no longer believe in God.
I get it. There's Christians voting for him
so,
too.
Yeah,
it's
exactly. So it's not just it's not monotheistic.
Right,
Here's the thing I'll say about this: the challenge that Cuomo is going to have is that he is an actor, but he's authentically fake. Because you know how they say that Trump people vote for him because they don't take him seriously. They take what his objective is seriously, but don't take the words he's saying seriously. The people in New York City, they know what Mamdani's about. They know that he's lying. They know that he's a faker.
44 minutes.
But they think he's authentic.
I got you. So
Right, so that's the clip I want to play. Marco, I think you as a tour guide, you have a lot of contact with American Jews. So knowing the American community to the extent that you know, were you somehow surprised or you saw that coming?
No, not in the least. In fact, my American clients had forewarned me that this was a foregone conclusion, that Mamdani would be elected. It was a foregone conclusion some months ago. So there were no surprises there. We do, I mean, Peter, we do understand basically a little bit about American Jewry to a great extent. Probably it's a little bit different from the UK. Reform there is very strong. It has been there very strong for a while. But the interesting thing recently with the war we've been involved with on 7 fronts, that many Reform rabbis have been asking themselves certain questions. They've been asking themselves, where have we gone wrong with regard to the young who have now taken these extraordinary positions, anti-Zionist positions? They've been totally absorbed by this woke progressive agenda. And indeed, we do see that these rabbis, these Reform rabbis, have been asking these questions, and they're all too aware of the failure. Peter, would you like to?
I have quite close ties with the Reform community, and I have to tell you that they are driven by an ideology that is at best lukewarm to Zionism. They detest Netanyahu, and they feel very comfortable with those on the left wing of politics. The way they speak at sermons, the podcasts that they have, the meetings that they have. And it's only when something happens to them as individuals, or perhaps people they are close to as individuals, that they may step back. Because it's only in the last 2 years, since October the 7th, where true anti-Semitism has reared its head in the terms of physical attacks. It was always there pre-October the 7th in the BBC, in the media, but never to the point where there was so much physical hostility. And it's only when something happens to one personally, take for example the Reform rabbis, that they step back. I was a member of the Board of Deputies of British Jews for 7 years, up until 3 years ago. And I can assure you that organisation, which is the go-to organisation for British Jewry, and has been for the last 100 odd years, has been dominated by a left-wing cohort that is hostile to Netanyahu, lukewarm towards Zionism, and only now has recently put its head above the parapet and calling out anti-Semitism while still trying to maintain a true friendship with the far left. So I think we lost that battle. Our leadership, our Jewish leadership, lost that battle some years ago, and I don't think they will be able to recover the lost ground. I think it's too far gone. What is truly appalling is how, in many cases, those Jewish leaders were so actively hostile to the Jewish state of Israel. That to me is, to say it's perplexing is an understatement. And they, unfortunately, have brought us to the point of where we are now. And I don't think they can recover from that point. So, as I said to you before, I think for Jews in the United Kingdom, it's currently not a safe place. I don't think it will get safer. If anything, it will get worse. Israel is the emblem under which those hostile to Jews can say, well, we're not anti-Semitic. We love Jews, but we don't like the Jewish state of Israel. And that's doesn't wash anymore. We know who you are. And unfortunately, we have had some very poor Jewish leadership. I must say, I actually think our own chief rabbi has been very poor in promoting the requirements that we Jews need. Very poor. And I don't, in fact, the people who've been most vociferous in supporting us have been non-Jews, MPs like John Mann. They call him a far-right racist, but people like Tommy Robinson. We've got a news channel, GB News, that is trying to support, rather than support Judaism, trying to challenge the anti-Semites. Funnily enough, that has a growing audience. For the first time, it has overtaken both the BBC and Sky News for 3 consecutive months as being the most watched news channel, and is very pro-Israel. So that gives me some hope. But I think that the numbers are such that I don't think it's going to get any better for us in the UK. And I'm sure if you spoke to Jews in France, probably the Netherlands, Belgium, certainly, you would probably get the same picture. So it's that's the way it is. And just maybe that's what God had intended for us.
Well, I think I would certainly agree with you on that. I think the time has come to come home. The time is nigh. I think the Jews should be coming home if they can't see the writing on the wall. God, we're in a very bad place, as it were. And Anjuli, I'd like to get back to you with regard to Islam, because obviously the Islamists are doing something very well.
The first thing that they do very well and correctly is that they don't refer to themselves as Islamists, and what they are up to is not Islamism. That is because there is no such thing as Islamism, and there are no such people as Islamists. And it is one of our abiding traits that we try to sketch things in the most palatable way, in the most polite way that we can, even to the detriment of what the thing is. No-go zones. Let's take no-go zones, for example. We call them no-go zones, but what are they actually? Who cannot go there? The forces of the state who apply the laws of the state and the writ of the state and the jurisdiction of the state, they cannot go there. That means wherever there is a so-called no-go area, the sovereignty of your country has ceased to exist. It is an Islamic state. And so the more of these so-called no-go zones we talk about, we don't see the wood for the trees. We don't see that if our police cannot go in there, that is no longer our country. Our laws do not apply there. Other laws do. So the actual physical, and I mean in a physical sense, the physical geographical area comprising what is supposed to be officially the state is diminished by the extent to which so-called no-go zones exist. Now, you don't need a no-go zone. You don't need a crime-ridden, crazy no-go zone for your sovereignty to already be reduced in your Western country. You merely need a mosque. Put a mosque there and your country's laws do not apply there. Your sovereignty is reduced by the land area of that mosque. Multiply that 400 times. That is the extent to which the geography of your country has been reduced. Your territorial integrity has been compromised. People don't think of it this way. They don't realize this. So now I want to respectfully disagree with my colleague, and also with the title of our discussion. We talk about political Islam. We talk about Islamism. We talk about fundamentalism. That's how it started. Fundamentalist Islam in the 1990s. All of these things is our way of trying to be polite, of trying to be nice towards Muslims, of trying to not be too critical of what is just another religion. These people, after all, worship God, etc., etc. I am sorry, I have no more time for this. I have no more time for this. We are talking about a martial religion that has one objective and one objective alone, and that is to subjugate the entire world by violence. It plays by its own rules, and it is highly deceptive, extremely so. And we, civilized Western people, it is both our strength and our weakness that we cannot see evil when it stares at the face. We would rather find ways, find any excuse to separate them into the nice ones and the bad ones and give them different names so we can cope with it. But that is our problem. If the whole thing is evil, if we are facing catastrophe, we cannot cope with it. We cannot have our discussions. We cannot live with ourselves. So we create these fantasies, and these fantasies are exactly the milieu, the context in which Islam thrives, in which Muslims take over your country, in which more and more of the women get raped, more and more of the schools turn violent, more and more of your politicians are corrupt to the eyeballs, more and more of your own laws that are meant to protect your citizens no longer get enforced, not only in no-go zones, but in the rest of the country as well, because we are nice, we are civilized, and we don't want to be making blanket condemnations and stereotypical things. It's past time for that. Stop playing this game, okay? There are Muslims who don't like being Muslim, and they don't like this about Islam and that about Islam. Then why are they still Muslim? And why is it our problem if their co-religionists turn against them? Why do we take that problem on board? Why don't we say to them, it's your religion, you solve it. It's not for us to protect them, right? And the fact that they stay there and they cling to Islam and they cling to, I am a Muslim, but I'm not like that one, and etc. We are the ones who pay the price for that. We fall for that. Yeah, I want to point out, because we don't take the trouble to study Islam, we don't take the trouble to read the Quran, we don't take the trouble to study Sharia, and we don't take the trouble to really, really interrogate Muslims. We do not know, we do not realize that the people we call moderate Muslims, the peaceful ones, the ones we're supposed to get on with, etc., the Quran recognizes them. It makes a distinction between two kinds of Muslims. The whole thing is to pursue the cause of Allah, in other words, jihad. And all Muslims have the duty to do this collectively, not individually, collectively. The Quran makes a distinction between two kinds of Muslims. On the one hand, there are the Muslims who go out and kill and die for Allah. On the other hand, there are the Muslims who do not do this. The Muslims who do not do this, the Quran describes as Muslims who sit at home. Yeah, they sit at home. And it is very, very clear that these people are devalued. They are not of the same status, religiously, socially, etc., as the ones who go and kill and murder. But the Quran discusses both of them. And just because the collective responsibility of all Muslims is to go and kill Jews and everybody else, and some of them cannot do that or are not temperamentally suited to do that, doesn't take them off the hook. They have other duties to perform, and those duties are to support the ones who go out and do the killing. These are your nice Muslim friends, the peaceful ones. Their job is to protect the ones who do the killing, right? And they do this by, number one, not reporting them. They all know, they can know what's going on in the mosques. They know who's lined up to go do what next. They don't report them. If the police come to ask them specifically, do you know so-and-so or was so-and-so here? They will deny it because that is their role as laid out in their holy book. They give the money, they give the food, they give the accommodation, they drive them to the place where they're going to commit the mass murders, etc. So please, it is too late to entertain these fanciful notions of these nice Muslims and these evil Muslims, these Islamists and the other ones. There is no such distinction. They all play their role in advancing the cause of Islam for as long as they insist that they are Muslim. Okay, I want to stop there.
No,
No problem. I just want to
sorry, I'd like to. Sorry,
there's a comment. There's a comment here
I
from a viewer.
Yeah,
Let's
I
just
know.
bring the viewers to the conversation, Marco.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, just that they understand that they are part of the dialogue. So I think your insights are very powerful, Anjuli. They really resonate with the viewers, which is great. There is someone saying here, Islam is a totalitarian expansionist ideology, more like a cult rather than a religion. Its political aspirations make it big and threat to Western democracy. Hope it's not too late. So there are some people there who are aware of the danger and they are probably taking action in their courtyard. That's something to celebrate. Marco, go on.
No, you're not saying anything I'm not aware of, Anjuli. I wanted you to say that. Now, there is a reason why people do use certain words beyond the considerations that you do mention, because notwithstanding what you do say, and I agree with probably 85% of what you said, on the other hand, within religions, you see different streams develop. And Islam is no exception to this, okay? So the reason why I do use these terms is because you don't want to alienate those people who can break away from this, from what you call normative Islam. I presume that's what you're trying to say, okay? We're talking about normative Islam. There are people, and I think Israel is a good example, we have Muslims who are faithful servants of the state of Israel. So in a way, they have the capacity to interpret their religion in a different way. Now, you have to bear in mind that these people are born with this identity. So certain truths, we have to sort of be a little bit more why do we use these words? Because we want to moderate the language whereby we don't necessarily alienate people more than necessary. But I'm fully aware of what you're saying. I am a student of history. I am aware of what you say. But on the other hand, there are people who break away from this interpretation or what is normative Islam and take it in another direction. That this is the reason why people use the words Islam. There's no doubt that nobody doubts in any way what Islam, the spread of Islam, has entailed for many indigenous populations, and indeed the ongoing genocide. That is beyond any doubt. We know what's going on. And in fact, I would like to reconnect to what was said before. Palestinism and the accusation of genocide against Israel is a decoy for the real genocide that is being perpetrated not only in the Middle East, but also in Black Africa. So it's not as if we're under any illusion as to what the forces of Islam have done throughout history. I'm fully aware of that. I live at the center of it here in the land of Israel. We're fully aware of that. I just wanted to emphasize that point.
I would like Peter, before you go, to comment. Last Zoran Mamdani, whatever you pronounce his name, tweet. So the man was just elected, as we know, okay, and he, just as a background for those who are not that familiar with X, okay, for those who are not following him, like me, I just got to know today that he posted a big thank you, of course, for the voters, and he rushed to denounce an anti-Semitic event in New York. So I'm going to show you, Peter, in case you miss it, because I know you are huge in X. So and start to follow Peter in X, by the way. What's your handle in X, Peter, if you don't mind, just for the viewers?
At Baum _P.
Good. So make sure to follow Peter, and I'll show you the tweet if I manage. I think I will. And I think it was too fast. It was so much on a rush that it seems to me he is just faking, trying to sell an image that is not who he is. So I think we should be very aware of this kind of politician who are anything else than
that falls very much in line with what we have to say.
He wrote, "This is a disgusting and heartbreaking act of anti-Semitism has no place in our beautiful city. As mayor, I will always stand steadfast with our neighbors to root the scourge of anti-Semitism out of our city." So he was just elected, okay? He was just elected. The only thing he posted, other than a celebration, was this. Like, I think you need to be very, 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 very much of a fool not to understand that he's trying to show a person that he is not. Peter, your thoughts on that?
Understood. He's just been elected, and as a politician, he's making statements that I would expect him to make. Going forward, 6 months down the road, let's see if he clamps down on the anti-Semitic behaviour that New York Jews have experienced. And let's see what his rhetoric is like when it comes to the Jewish state of Israel, because he understands completely that if he continues with his rabid hostility to the Jewish state of Israel, that is going to facilitate anti-Semitism in his own backyard in New York. So it's those politicians who choose their words carefully that if they are truly believe if he truly acts as what he said, he will not make the kind of inflammatory remarks against the Jewish state of Israel and being that supportive of Palestinians and Hamas going forward. If he continues stating what he stated previously, then all his words about ensuring that they won't tolerate anti-Semites is complete rubbish, because everyone knows that when a politician speaks in inflammatory language against Israel, that is the key for others to be given the go-ahead to commit acts of anti-Semitism. It's as simple as that. So I hope that those Jews who voted for him don't live to regret that. It will be interesting to see also what action the Trump administration is going to take, if any, politically against Mamdani, whether they're going to cut federal spending towards them, whether they're going to support New York. That's going to be interesting. And don't forget, I think it's next year we have the midterms. So New York has always been a democratic state. We shouldn't be overly surprised that a Democrat was elected. What is truly surprising, though, is the number of votes he received from the Jewish community. And that is where we came in at, I suppose. So just a phenomenon and a paradox that I hope doesn't live to haunt those Jews who voted for him.
I would have a slightly different opinion there. I would say I hope they end up living to regret it. Else there will be no progress. They have to go through that. They have to suffer the consequences of this action that they've taken in their blind stubbornness. And then there's hope. Then there will be hope. But otherwise, no. The big change that has happened in Israel since the 7th of October is that a lot of people just woke up. There's a diehard left, of course. They never will, and they're fighting tooth and nail to cling to their power and privilege even right now. But I think the diaspora has been playing it both ways in all this time, and the chickens are coming home to roost. You cannot throw in your lot with the kinds of people that the mainstream, that the left-wing Jews of New York have been throwing their lot in with, and not learn anything, and not come to regret that. There has to be some kind of a reckoning, and I think they need it.
Some people learn the hard way, Anjuli. You're perfectly right. I agree with you. What happened on the 7th of October is a prime example of that. These were the people who appeased, they welcomed these delinquents into their houses. They fed them, they clothed them, they provide medical services. They were their advocates. They accompanied them for medical treatment to hospitals in Israel until payback. And unfortunately, the tune of these people has changed. Of course, no one would have wanted it to happen, but unfortunately, they entertained this illusion for many years. You're 100% right on that. No sound.
Something remarkable did happen this week in the UK, just to emphasise the point that Marco has made. It's a paradox that the LGBTQ community has also aligned itself with the pro-Palestinian horde. And this week there was a march going on in one of the northern towns where the pro-Palestinians, the communists, the leftists were all out together, as were the LGBT activists and the trans community. Now, that members of that community were set upon by Muslims. And they were pleading, but hey, we're one of you, we're with you. And the Muslims were saying, oh, no, you're not. No, you're not.
I'm sorry, they deserve it.
Voting for KFC. I just couldn't get my head. But maybe now that that's happened, and this this post was taken off Twitter, but it's still available, of seeing these trans activists being beaten up by Muslims. Hopefully that will be a wake-up call for that small but influential demographic. And we just have to wait and see when the Muslims turn on the Jews who are marching with them on these pro-Palestinian marches, to see what the reaction will be from there.
Yeah.
And it will happen.
Yeah, it will.
Anjuli, Vítor and Marco, I'm sorry, I have to go. For those viewers who don't know, it's November the 5th firework night here, and I have to go downstairs to a community party. So I thank you very much for having me. It's been a privilege as always, and I hope to be with you guys again in the not too distant future.
Please God, please God.
Yeah, very
Thank you,
welcome.
Peter.
Thank you, John.
Shalom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anjuli.
Talking of the UK, let me just advertise that next Tuesday, myself and Marco will be part of Global Learning Day for Rabbi Sack. So it will be Tuesday. So next week we won't be here on Wednesday, which is our usual date for this kind of session. So we will do something slightly different. We will focus on Rabbi Sack lessons. We will discuss the power of conversation in a time of war. Okay, so we are living battles, whether we are in Israel or out or in the diaspora. There are conflicts all over the place. So we will see how much we can benefit from dialogues and use Rabbi Sack philosophy to shed some light into this dark time. So make sure to connect. We'll do it 6:30, very likely. If not 6:30, some closer time to 6:30. So make sure to be connected. We'll be talking under the theme Torah as conversation. It's not only revision. There are also other aspects to be brought into the table. So subscribe to the channel and don't miss this show. All right. So Marco, you wanna?
I actually wanted to draw time, but we'll discuss it with Anjuli now. Anjuli, did you notice the BBC? The mask was ripped off the BBC with regards to its bias. Have you been following that? And their doctoring of Donald Trump's 6th of January speech, which here we see the active involvement of the media in the message here is the active involvement of the media in perverting the narrative, which
I'm not familiar with
anyway, but you understand the thrust of what I'm saying.
Sure,
anyway,
sure.
So this is a blatant example which has received a lot of publicity in the UK. Obviously, it hasn't reached you, but it's available, and I think this is indicative of what has been happening. And I believe the pieces are beginning to fall now into place for many people. Something is happening, even here in Israel. And Julie, I'm not sure whether you have been following the episodes of the
very much so,
Advocate General. Similarly, the people she's been involved with doctored the video of the rape that wasn't of Palestinist prisoners, so that the chickens are coming home to roost for these people as well. Unfortunately, she did, and her cohort created enormous damage for the state of Israel. But slowly but surely, we're seeing a little bit of movement. They're beginning to be revealed for what they are. A lot of us knew this already, or had an inkling that this would be the case. So we're living in interesting times now, and I think we're on the verge of some important earthquakes, not only in Israel, but around the world. Anjuli, does this make sense to you?
Yes, it does. It does. I'm not sure whether the earthquakes are all necessarily positive. I think the one in Israel definitely is. That whole edifice finally crumbling, and I think what is encouraging is that the leftist elites in Israel still cannot see that the writing's on the wall. They're still so blinded by their own arrogance. They simply cannot see the whole thing crumbling around them, and they still behave as if they own the world and they can behave with impunity. And it's actually quite thrilling to watch. It's like watching a live soap opera of it's like all the corny stuff. And I confess to yes, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying seeing this horrible lot go down, and a better Israel emerging after this. And thankfully, there's a younger generation that's much more together, much more clear about who they are, about their state, and about how they protect it. And so there's not going to be a vacuum. There isn't going to be a vacuum. And I think the same generation as the people who are now in trouble, who have had to live with them and kind of negotiate their way through with them, they will pick up the torch. The Simcha Rotmans, the Levines, people like this, they will make that transition to the next generation that's coming up, and will take the country in a better direction. So yeah, I'm optimistic for Israel. I'm optimistic for Israel. I think the external enemies, I think the good people of the current generation are not yet in a position to really deal with the external enemies in the way that they should. And I think they've dealt with them in the best way that they can under the circumstances, and to the extent that they are able to hold their own in the world. I think they are more beholden to the West and to international opinion than they need to be, but I don't think they're going to escape that. I think it's the next generation that will escape that. And as I don't care who says what, this is in our interest, this is what we're doing, basta.
Basta was a word that Zev Jabotinsky used to.
I didn't know that.
Was wont to use. Put it that way. He of course spent years studying. He spent years studying in Italy, and that was a word that he would habitually use. Enough already. You're absolutely right. There is a new generation emerging, thankfully.
But sorry, can I just finish?
Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
That generation's equivalent in the West, sadly, is in a very different place, and I'm not optimistic at all. I think it's not only the whole nexus that gave the West political correctness, multiculturalism, identity politics, have done a very good job on destroying an entire generation of Western people, and I fear. I mean, it's lost. It's lost, and you were asking. Our title is about Islam's political influence is expanding in Europe. I think it's already taken over Western Europe, and the part of Europe that really has to wake up now is the part of Europe that lies between Western Europe and Russia. Those countries now have to act to prevent this happening to them 40 years from now. And it isn't clear. They don't see it. They don't see it. And when Western Europe was had this much leeway to operate in, they didn't think of these things at all. They thought of it in a completely different way. But we have now the historical example, the contemporary example of what happens when you allow millions of Muslims into a civilized Western country. It gets destroyed. And the part of Europe that does not have this horrible infection can do something about it and have to do something about it now. They cannot leave it for later, even if it looks like it's not a problem, even if it looks like we only have a million or two Muslims in our country and they are not a problem. No, they are a problem. And now's the time to solve it.
Especially when the sense of identity has been destroyed, the problem is accentuated. Because had there been strong host countries, we would have had a different story. Had we had strong host countries with strong identities laying down the law and not timid in their response and saying who can stay, who can't, then I think reality would have been different. And to a great extent, we see that in Israel. What saves Israel is a strong Jewish identity. And I'm not talking about the elites. I'm talking about the man in the street. Where a strong identity obtained. So even if we see somebody who's dressed in what we'd identify as Muslim garb, it doesn't affect us as it would in Europe, because people here are very aware of their own identity. It has a different effect here. Europe is weak. From an identity point, it's weak. It's imploded. Here it's different.
But I think Islam had a hand in that. Islam had a hand in corrupting the European identity.
Oh, no, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. But the extent to which it could do it, because we see a Europe that has been imploding for a long time, that it's lost its bearings. The identities are there's no sense of a national project. Individualism works to a certain extent, but it has to be contained. When you're not part of a greater project, I'm not talking about a totalitarian project, but the idea there's a sense of belonging, then things start to unravel. When you don't have a sense of there is something to be preserved and handed to future generations.
Anjuli, you are based in Czech Republic, and I think recently there were elections, and the right-wing party, for sure, they were happy with the result, and I think they are those guys that Marco was just referring to. Those are the guys with sense of identity. They are aware of what's going on in Western Europe. Is it something that you can also perceive in the streets of Prague, or it's just happening, let's say, in the election day?
There's a strange kind of thing going on where there's it seems there's a tussle at the moment, and I'm not generalizing this across the whole of Central Eastern Europe, but there's a tussle going on at the moment for the minds of young people, and there's a wokeness creeping in, universities handing down directives to university teachers, not to challenge students' opinions. This is very, very dangerous development. And this is how it begins. This is how it begins.
Indeed.
And it's no longer about learning to engage in discourse, arguing back and forth, disagreeing with each other. No, this is the taboo. And this is one of the first steps in turning your population, in preparing your population mentally for turning them Muslim later. The first thing that Muslim children learn in madrasa is never to question. You never question. And this
Anjuli,
is...
sorry to cut you off. I understand the concept, but do you see that occurring in the streets of Prague? That was I was very keen to know what the situation in Central Europe, since I spent some time living there.
Yeah. There is a strong and I think growing reaction, and it is a right-wing reaction, and along with this, in this right-wing reaction is mixed in some socially pretty unsavory stuff, but at the same time, in security terms, very important things. You know, there was the election before this. I think it was the one before this. There was a political party called Pirates, and they were the kind of progressive, be nice to immigrants type party, and they won a seat. They won a significant position in the government. You know, the day after that election, in the street, complete strangers, people I'd never seen before, came up to me, hugged me, wished me well, congratulated me. I had nothing to do with the election. Yes, but there is a segment of the population that is ready to pick up the woke torch, and so it's a delicate point.
What segment is that, Anjuli? Can you name it? What segment is that?
No, it doesn't have a name, right?
But how would you describe it? Just for people to have a more concrete understanding. Is it the youth?
Okay.
Is it?
It's youth and older people, but it's not the generation that matured under communism. It's not them, but it is people younger than them, right? The kids. I mean, the last time I taught in university, it was quite alarming how many students were losing their minds, going woke and becoming completely locked into climate change as a religion, and they couldn't discuss anything anymore. This is how it begins.
Yes,
this is how it begins, right?
Yes.
And so there is also hope. They don't run the show. There are enough people who are growing into freedom, and it's not a society that's accustomed to being free, right? Let's not make a mistake about this. There's democracy, sure, but it's not a society that, as a whole, in their blood, in their guts, they're not yet people who have decades and centuries of democracy and freedom behind it. And you see it. You see it in normal discussions. You see the fatalism in that the powers that be do things and we cannot. They don't yet understand that it is them. It is they who need to make the place the way they want it to be. They don't yet see. They don't yet have a sense for that. But it's coming, and I see it coming, right? So it's a long-winded way of answering your question, but I'm seeing that the society is in flux, and all forces are represented in that flux. And I'm not being either optimistic or pessimistic either way. But I think, and they need to connect to people who can point out to them the dangers that they are in and the choices that they had better make at this point before those they have no opportunity later to make those choices. They can't see it yet.
Yeah, I think one of the issues is people in places like Prague or Budapest, where I lived for a few years, they are quite exposed to what's happening in the West through social media. And there is still this established idea, which is not as valid as it was, that the West is doing the right thing because they are wealthier, they have better infrastructure. So they tend to think that we are guiding Europe. And we must be doing something right. And the youth still accepts that message. It's not as widespread as before, but it's still somehow mainstream, and it's not changing with social media.
Yes, you're right. You're quite right about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Marco, you want to jump here?
Something that just sprang to mind now. What are people's opinions or views about membership of the European Union?
Are you asking about Czechia?
Yes.
I don't think people have issues with that. I don't think people have issues. I think that amongst us, the more politically savvy people, I think there's a sense that when Europe gets too much, we'll pull out. And I think that's a sentiment around the former Soviet bloc. To be part of the European Union means getting a lot of money, a lot of expertise to make up for the backwardness that they inherited from the Soviet era. And as I say, it's the right thing to do, in my opinion. But the people who really panicked when Europe expanded, remember that, I don't know what year it was, when there was 10 countries joined the European Union one day. That really spooked the Arab League, and it spooked the Islamic Conference, Organization of Islamic Conference, and all those global Muslim organizations who were pushing for the takeover of the European Union, which is now succeeding. They really panicked when the European Union was going to expand eastwards, because the people of the East have not been ideologically prepared for takeover like the people of the West have been since the 1970s onwards.
Yes,
and it's showing. So they cannot penetrate Eastern Europe. They're trying with students especially. They're trying to get in. But it's you see Muslims here and there, but it's they also have to make sure they don't lose what they've gained, what they've built up so carefully over decades in Western Europe. They don't want to, and so Europe is bifurcating. There's no question about that in my mind. And as far as Western Europe is concerned, there's only two choices. It's either Islam or it's civil war. That's it. This is how I see it.
No, I'm in agreement with you. I'm in agreement.
And I can see that Iron Curtain going up again, and it will be to protect Eastern Europe from the Muslims in Western Europe. That's how I see it going.
Right. Yes, we did a podcast on stealth jihad, which now is developing into kinetic jihad, as it were.
Yeah, people can look for it. And the other one that people can look for, going to Anjuli comments, it's last week we spoke to a Gen Z Italian, okay, and he is quite an exception. He is almost like an oasis in this, in this desert we face now of ideas. So if people want to watch a lot of insights,
Is he the young man who was on the first time I appeared on your podcast?
That's him.
Ah, yes.
Was one of the young men.
Interesting guy.
Yeah, one of the young men. Yeah. Yeah.
You mean I'm not
Yeah.
young? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I was about to joke you, right? But last time you took it bad, Marco. So
You blew it, Anjuli. You blew
I
it.
stayed silent. I stayed silent.
Yeah. I should be very careful not to alienate you, Marco.
I'm very sensitive. I take offense very easily.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the Chris Williamson work? Are you familiar with this YouTube figure? If you are not,
I'm sorry,
you can
I missed the first part of that. I'm sorry.
Are you
Marco.
familiar with Chris Williamson, a YouTuber? Are you familiar with him? You are not. I can see by your faces you are not.
No. I just didn't hear whom you said. I don't know his name.
Chris is his first name. Williamson is
yes.
his surname.
Yes,
You know him, of course.
Yes, I've seen some of his discussions.
I can see you follow all the handsome guys on the internet. Lorenzo that was here, Chris Williamson, and us. So very good. Anyway, he wrote on his newsletter something that I think it's in line with what you were saying, and it's a positive note. So let's try to bring some light into the conversation. He wrote this: the future looks conservative. The assumption that birth rates are falling across society in general is not really true. People who identify as conservative are having almost as many children as they were decades ago. The decline, on the other hand, is overwhelming among those on the progressive left. So he believes there's a split on the birth rates, and the left is to blame. That's the whole message, I don't know if Chris Williamson have kids, but I'm sure there'll be many women who'll be very happy to have kids with him.
I'm not one of them, trust me.
No. I'm not trying to serve you as a candidate. Yeah. No problem. Yeah, no problem. So here is some light to the conversation.
Yeah, no, sure. Very good.
Any final words from your end, folks?
Well, it was more lighthearted towards the end, and I like that. And I also like sparring with Marco.
I'm a soft touch.
If you don't, refer Marco to age,
I float like a
okay.
butterfly and sting like a bee.
Sting like a bee. I see.
Okay. I misquoted that. I float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Oh.
Yeah, well, I'm a rumble in the jungle, so there you go.
I remember you. My goodness, we have some shared memories. The rumble in the jungle was George Foreman. The thriller in Manila was Joe Frazier. Yeah, great times.
We're showing our age.
Yeah.
We're showing our age.
Yes. Well, no, we're not. I watch all these on YouTube videos. I didn't live through that.
Oh boy. Yeah, but I miss Israel, I have to say. You're
welcome to join us, but perhaps
we're organizing a tour.
Israel.
We're organizing a tour.
February. Yes.
February. Sign up. Yes.
Sign up. We'll send we'll send the links pretty soon. They are nearly
great. Wonderful.
So perhaps you can be part of the group. To be great to see you.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes. We'll share with the viewers. It's not finalized, but we are nearly there. We are one stone away.
And there we can do some real sparring.
We will be talking about this every 5 minutes. So be prepared. Yeah, be prepared.
Okay.
So guys, if you want to know more about the tour, subscribe to the channel, because as I said, I'm going to talk about this every 5 minutes. If you like what we did here tonight, let us know by clicking the like button below. And if you can share with someone who's into it, it would be great if you can press that share button below. Last but not the least, let me just share my Movember campaign. I'm growing a mustache I'm very far from it, but I'll get there.
You know how you grow a mustache? How you accelerate the pace of the hair growth? You rub salt. You rub salt on it, so the hairs get thirsty and come out.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah,
did you know that, Anjuli? That trick?
No, I didn't know that.
You rub salt on it, so the hair. So
you're gonna look dodgy.
So make sure to connect to Movember Ireland. I will put the link on the description. People are already donating. We have 50 quid as of now, so it's not little, but it's it's a good beginning. So if people want to support Movember campaign, mental health, suicide prevention awareness, those topics are very important. I'm doing Movember conversations. I had one on Monday. Where people can watch it. It's stored in this YouTube channel. There'll be another one coming next Monday, and I hope I won't be as tired as I'm today. Let's put it like that. And there'll be other 3 for the rest of the month. My mustache will be bigger because I will use Marco's technique.
Are you going to go like
Rub
this?
salt,
Or are you going to go like this?
No, I'm not a Motorhead fan, so
that's a kind of a Kaiser Wilhelm. She was alluding to Kaiser Wilhelm II.
Right. So yeah, we'll see you next Tuesday, Marco, for the Rabbi Sack chat. I think it's going to be powerful. It's going to be more philosophical, not as much political, although everything is political these days. So make sure to connect, and Anjuli will talk about the tour offline.
Okay, great.
See you
yes.
on the Land of Israel and before that in one of these sessions. So
sure. Okay.
Have a good evening, everyone. Take care.
Okay, guys.